Hello, welcome to another Donkey Kong Genius video. I felt that it was appropriate to create a new video commenting on the new Jaws world record. Since the last time I increased the world record, I have created a new task that was faster than the previous route, and it was about 4 seconds faster that I had was able to carve off. And so I wanted to be able to show those adjustments that I've made for speedrun purposes. And I also wanted to go back and highlight a few areas that I wanted to comment further upon, or some areas that I may have missed in my previous speedrun tutorial, so that between this commentary and the previous speedrun tutorial, you'll be able to have an idea, a better idea of the areas where you can make improvements and ensure pattern integrity. I wanted to recap that there is no RNG in this game. So if anytime you hear somebody mention RNG in this game, they're ignorant. I'm just sorry. Just take it from the guy who has the world record and who created the fastest task video for the game. All right, it's just the way that it is. Also, in creating the task video and using the task strat for this particular world record, I am 9.36 seconds from the task that I made, which is pretty significant for a game like this. It's very execution heavy. It's ran based on patterns, how fast you can hit the button, well, in terms of the rhythm that you use. So I'm excited about this new world record. It is I carved off the 4 seconds that I was looking for. My Jaws encounter is within 1/10 of a second of my 3:34 world record. I was thinking about maybe doing it a little bit quicker and getting sub 3:30, but maybe I can also leave that for the next guy too. But so with this video, I just wanted to go through and make some brief comments upon world record here. So I'm going to let it play to certain points and then slow it down here. The first adjustment I make is to trigger the encounter faster. And I'll show that again. In the previous world record, I basically did what Jam Evil had done. And I should mention that none of this development that I have done in this game would have happened if it wasn't for Jam Evil's, I think it was 353 or 354. I never would have had the groundwork already made for me without having to basically recreate all the patterns from scratch. He had done a lot of significant work on the game and patternizing the first or second, potentially including the second encounter. And so with that, huge thanks. You should see him on YouTube. I think he's Jam Evil or Jam Eviler. You can also follow him on Twitter and watch him on Twitch. I highly recommend that. And so while I'm at thanking people, I should most definitely also thank Rudy Ferretti for asking me to take a look at the game, because at this point the game is becoming much more intense. It's no longer a matter of grinding out 1,000 attempts waiting for the right variables to just happen to fall into place. It's turned into a game of execution, how fast you can execute the patterns, finding new patterns. And that's exciting. That's the way I like playing games. I don't like playing with high RNG. I don't like one frame tricks that like bypass entire fights and stuff, like on Nightmare on Elm Street. I like being able to fight everything, utilize everything, and just play the game you know, the way that it was intended to be played, kind of in the spirit of the game, and 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 learn how the game itself functions. And I like this. So in the 334, I basically just did buffered movements right here. And I think I would go up, I would go down, and it would take time. Now I use this little jag right around where the encounter hits, and that triggers the encounter faster. So that carves off some time there, which is nice. So everything is pretty much the same through these encounters, but I wanted to mention right here that when you kill this eel that's going to come out on the right, yes, I know there's stingrays, but this eel that comes out on the left right here, if he dies and you're too far to the right of the small peak on this far side here, then he'll drop a shell, and that would be a reset. So I always make sure that I'm far enough to the left of that location when I kill this jellyfish here. Alright, so everything is the same so far. I made one adjustment, it was just a matter of style. And that was as I would stop here at this peak, and I would shoot left as soon as I can to kill the eel as fast as I possibly can. And as soon as it dies, I will dart to the right, because at that peak, that's the threshold. If I was too far to the right, then that eel would drop a shell. So as soon as he dies, I dart to the right. I made this adjustment because there were times where when I was going to the right at this point, I would be just beyond the threshold. And so I decided that I would just streamline it. I'd always just wait for the visual cue and then dart to the right. I was much more consistent at doing that. And when you're grinding out, you know, a 2-3 hour gaming session, and you want everything to be consistent so you can get to the end of the game as much as possible. I also wanted to mention here at this point that I'd be waiting at this peak. This is the threshold at this point, and I wait for the jellyfish to disappear. As soon as it hits the top, as soon as you no longer see the jellyfish, dart to the left, and I go a little bit past the star, because while I'm moving to the right, continually to holding right, I don't want to bypass a certain threshold. And that threshold would be going past, going too far to the right or not being far enough to the right. For whatever reason, I found that as long as I go a little bit past the star, right there, and I just continue to hold right until I see the jellyfish, I'll get the jellyfish spawning in the far left instead of closer to me, which causes it to the pattern to degrade. Pattern degradation. Alright, so the only other adjustment I do here is as soon as I kill that and get that crab, this is the crab that just spawned is the crab you want to get last. You want to grab the crab on the right first. Alright, so I'll take that back here so you can, let's go a little bit further. So I'm grabbing that, then grabbing that for 490. Alright, if you grab those in the wrong order, it will mess up. You won't get the encounter at this shallow spot. Alright, there's only two, there's a couple shallow spots in this area, and there's one in the usual area, it's farther to the right here, and one that's right here in the middle, and that's the one that I wanted to go for. So you can see I'm buffering down, and then I go up into this little cove here. Alright, so it's a new location, and that was key because I found that where the submarine spawned had something to do with the location where the encounters occurred. This also changed where Jaws' location is and where the third encounter would be, and therefore how it would be skipped, whether quickly or not. So I found that this location placed the submarine in a new location, but we'll talk about that when we get there. So everything's the same with this encounter. I don't make any adjustments except for near the end. Okay, so originally right here I would grab this eel, and then I would grab this eel on the left, but I would not hit the jellyfish. This time we're going to hit the jellyfish because it's important for the pattern. Alright, so I try shooting the eel while it's further to the left, and I also do a little movement up to ensure that I'm going to grab the jellyfish. But we're going to finish up off the same, grabbing those two eels on the right and making sure the baby Jaws goes on the left. Now, there's two ways to screw this up at this point, which is interesting, which I had not mentioned in the previous speedrun tutorial. There's a shell on there right there. If I grab the shell that the baby Jaws drops before the shell on the right disappears, that is going to change the sublocation. It's also going to change where Jaws is, and it's going to change where the third encounter is going to be. And interestingly enough, just that little change by grabbing the shell that's dropped by the little shark before the shell on the right disappears screws up everything. So you have to wait for the shell on the right to disappear. But you also want to not wait too long after because then at that point you're losing frames. So you have to be cautious, but then you have to be quick. Another way to screw this up is that I found that when you grab the shell on the left that's dropped by the baby shark, if you are holding up while you collect that item, I'm pretty sure that's what is causing it. If you're holding up while grabbing the item without a left input, you're only holding the up input at that point, it will change where the submarine spawns. Instead of spawning in the bottom left hand corner of the map, it's going to spawn in the top right half. But it doesn't mess up Jaws' location, nor does it mess up being able to skip the third encounter. It's just that the submarine spawns in a location that is unuseful. Alright, so I'm going to take this back. So once again, we're waiting for the shell on the right to disappear, and we're just going to hold left through the shell, and we're not going to do any up inputs. Everything was the same here. This may even been a little bit slower because I needed to be a little more conservative. By the time I got the world record, I was at about 80% pass rate for hitting everything. and moving on to the Jaws encounter, which impressed even me. One time I did it 7 times in a row, and I was feeling pretty good about myself. Alright, so right here is one of the points in the game where I have to focus, and that is, as soon as you come out, you have to buffer down. Alright, you're holding down, so you move down, but as soon as you start to see your ship move down, you want to buffer and be holding right, otherwise you may end up going down too far. So I'm always holding down, and as soon as I see the ship, I immediately start holding right to ensure that this transition occurred right there. And you're going to notice that I didn't wait at the port like in the 334, like you've seen in every world record previous. What I found in the task is that for whatever reason, it's not the waiting that causes the third encounter skip. It's hitting the port at where the game has at certain variables. You know, depending on where Jaws is, where the third encounter would be hit, and hitting the port at a specific time and those changing variables, because once you wait, Jaws can move, and that also impacts how quickly the third encounter could move. It could adjust based on how long you wait in a certain spot. So when those two factors are exactly where you want them to be, and you hit the port, this port, I don't even know what those factors are. I just have to, through hours of trial and error through a task editor, to find this. So I go straight to the port. There is no waiting anymore. This is what carved off the 4 seconds mainly. So I tracked down about 5 and then back up 5. Someone might ask, well, is it faster to have that ship spawn in the bottom right where we have been having it? I had counted the amount of squares, the amount of movements. Like if you just move once, your ship kind of just moves. I call those squares. I kind of see it as like a checkerboard, and there's these different squares. I can count out how many movements it would take to move off the track on my way to this first port, and then get back on it, grabbing the sub. How many squares did that take? And I think I counted that was about 10 of them, I think, maybe, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. And it turned out to be comparable to how many squares it took to grab the boat and run into Jaws like I did in the 334. So it was comparable. I wasn't losing any time using this particular location, and it also seems advantageous because I don't have to worry about running into Jaws, making sure Jaws is in a certain spot in order around the sub to make sure that it works. This way I could just grab the sub and go straight up to the ports. Now I will also say that do exactly as I do. Follow the track exactly as I do. Because I have found that depending on where you turn, when you turn, can influence Jaws' movement. And when his movement changes, it messes up where he's going to be at the end. So if you do exactly as I do, you're always going to get the same results. Okay. So in doing that, just to show you the track, once again, just focus. I'm not touching any of the white ripples. And then I'm going straight up, left, up. And then basically I just track to the right as usual. But you have to use this particular track. Sometimes you can adjust it and it won't change anything. It won't be any faster. But sometimes it does mess it up because it influences Jaws' movement. Okay, and so when I come out of the third port, I do that little jog like that. And you actually don't see Jaws because he's actually coming up. His tail is coming up right up under the boat. Alright, so the Jaws encounter is the same. I use the same strat. I just try to spam them as much as I possibly can from behind. And then I time out my inputs. Jaws has an invulnerable period of time. Once he's hit, he can't be hit for another 24. He has a 24 frame window where he can't be hit again. So you need to land it on the 25th frame to maximize. If you do it sooner, you'll miss. And the longer you wait, the more frames you lose. Like right there, I missed that last one. That cost me the sub 330. Thankfully, he didn't do anything different here. Now Jaws can do different things. And what I decided to do early on was I can't predict exactly where he's going to be. I haven't spent much time to analyze, to watch where the jellyfish spawns, which I think is what may be changing what Jaws does here. I don't know that for sure. It may be. There might be a way for someone to watch where all the jellyfish does spawn during that Jaws encounter. That may tell you what Jaws is going to do here. That's very possible. I don't have to worry about that. Somebody who is going to be playing this game and getting to Jaws a lot may want to look at that. That might be of interest to you. I've only failed a few times at this point to spear Jaws because sometimes he'll jog to the left and I can't anticipate it. But what I decided to do is if he goes straight or to the right, I'll always get him. Because what I do as soon as the encounter starts is I start moving right. Even if Jaws isn't moving right, I'm moving right. And I always want to be a certain distance from him so that if he starts to jog to the right, I have plenty of time to use the right input to align myself with him. So I always keep it just to the right, even when he's close like this, because right here he can just start moving to the right if he was just going straight. So I always want to make sure I'm just to the right, and once he bypasses about that third line, I can move back to the left, straighten it up. He's going to go straight and I can hit him. So I always get Jaws if he goes straight down or to the right. It's when he decides to go shooting to the left that has a problem. And he probably does it under certain conditions. Like I said, if someone looked at the movement of where the jellyfishes are spawning, that may change. If you end up killing more than the two jellyfish at the beginning, and you end up having to kill a jellyfish near the end that seems to get in your way. Thankfully, during this run, a jellyfish did not spawn right in the middle to harass me when I was killing Jaws, and I'll actually show that to you because that's actually very common. Right here, as Jaws is coming out, there's usually a jellyfish that's spawning coming straight up near the middle, and as you can see, he would like hit you. So you have to turn around, hit him, and then go back after Jaws, which you could do with minimal waste of time. But he is a nuisance. He shows up a lot. And if you end up killing that jellyfish, that's probably going to change how Jaws moves too. So somebody can, with this, be able to determine what Jaws is going to do. I think that makes a difference because when I created the task video for the Jaws encounter, where the fin goes when you go to spear was always the same. So I believe that you don't have to worry about the eels, because the eels are going to be spawning in the same spots, because you're going to do this relatively the same each time. You're going to be doing about 16 hits lobbing. Here, I can even show you how I'm doing this. Alright, so for every pass from right to left is going to be at 16 hits. And what I'll do is I'll just I'll use that count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 1, 2, 3. Alright, that's pretty good. Getting 16 and then rounding over and then grabbing 3. Sometimes I can only grab 1 or 2. 3 is really good. With this particular run, I did 16 with 2 from back on the first. I did 16, then 3, then 16 and 2, and then it only took me 9 hits on the last pass. But that also assumes that I did a certain amount of hits on Jaws. If there's 80, I think if I remember correctly, there was 80 hits you have to do. So that means my very first pass after burning off my ship, I hit him 16 times. So that's what you'd have to do to get this particular time. To speed that up, you would have to hit him more times during those passes. You would need to do 16 and then 3 from behind, for instance, and maybe even hit him an extra time, maybe even 2 through the top, depending on how fast you're spamming your inputs and hitting right at that 25th frame where you can get hit. So I'll let that play out. And you can see where the jellyfish are spawning. You can probably memorize their spawn points. You're like, okay, jellyfish didn't spawn here. He spawned over there. He didn't spawn in the middle, so let's see, he's going to be doing this. So, and I was very conservative with that. I waited till his fin got right down to the line. I waited till he turned a little bit more, because I didn't want to miss when I used the strobe, and I didn't want to miss when I speared him with the ship. At that point, I just wanted to be done with it. The end. That Jaws encounter was about 1/10 of a second slower than my 334. I wanted to do something comparable. I have beaten the 334 many times before this, over the last couple months, but I never posted any updates because the Jaws encounter just wasn't where I wanted it to be. Some people would think, hey, that's kind of like you're sandbagging. An increase is an increase. It should always update every increase. But nobody was competing at the game at the time, so I didn't really worry about that. I had the task video out there showing people what you would need to do to use this new track anyways, so it wasn't like I was holding back any important information. So I waited till this run came about. I thought about doing a sub 330. This could have been a sub 330 if I wouldn't have missed that last lap, but I'm excited to be able to show you a new Jaws world record. And once again, thank you for watching my channel, and please like and comment on my video.